My name is Marcos González, and I'm the Deputy Head of Unit in CLIMA V4. So basically the unit that is responsible for maritime, aviation, rail, and intermodal emissions here in DG Climate Action in the European Commission. And as said, welcome to this webinar that is organized by the European Commission together with colleagues in the European Maritime Safety Agency in Lisbon, EMSA. And we would like also to thank EMSA for their collaboration and support on the implementation of the ETS for the maritime sector. This is the 7th webinar that we are organizing for companies. This is an activity that we launched in late 2023 with the objective of supporting stakeholders all around the world on the implementation of the ETS for the maritime sector. And as you know, we are approaching now key deadlines because by the end of this month, you will need to report the emissions corresponding to the year 2024, both in THETIS-MRV and also in the Union Registry for the ETS. And as said, as we are approaching these key deadlines, we wanted to present an update on the IT systems that are going to be used for this reporting of emissions. Both IT systems have been updated, and now the new functionalities are fully deployed. So the main body of this webinar would be 2 live demos on how the systems work that we hope will be useful for you when preparing your reporting. Please note that as previous webinars, this webinar will be recorded and it will be published in our website for further dissemination. The name of the participants will be fully anonymized. So if you want to submit any question, given the high number of participants, please write them in the chat and we will reply to them in the dedicated part of the agenda. And again, I thank you for your participation today. Now I leave the floor to my colleague Luca Colonna that will give a short presentation that is going to be followed, as I mentioned, by the live demos presentations.
Thank you so much, Marcos. Good afternoon, everybody. Let's now start this webinar with very few slides as an introduction, and then I will pass the floor for the live demos. As mentioned by Marcos, we will have basically 3 building blocks during today's webinar. We have structured it as a very hands-on, concise webinar to really guide you through step-by-step procedures to be implemented in the IT system for compliance by the end of the month when the reporting legal obligation kicks in. So I will first give you these very few slides on upcoming obligation and deadlines. Then we will have colleagues from Lisbon giving you a live demo on THETIS-MRV, how to report emissions at company level, followed by a live demo by our Union Registry colleagues, specifically on the reporting of emissions and the surrendering of allowances in the dedicated IT system. And then for this 1-hour webinar, we decided to dedicate it a bit more time to Q&As. And as mentioned by Marcos, please add in the chat the questions during the webinar so that we will have the chance to organize them and to present them during the last agenda point. Next slide, please. Now, as a recap on timeline, the monitoring year 2024 has come to an end with the end of the calendar year. And shipping companies are now to report as soon as possible and no later than the end of March, so the end of this month, their emissions, both at ship level and at company level, through THETIS-MRV. By the very same deadline, the end of March, they will also have to comply with the reporting requirements in the Union Registry through their MOAs, the Maritime Operator Holding Account, 1 account per each company. What they will have to do is to report the emission, but also to have them marked as verified. So it's a 2-step process in the Union Registry, which our colleagues will, in a few moments, explain into details during the second live demo. And then the next key deadline during the reporting year 2025 will be at the end of September, when in the Union Registry, each shipping company will have to have surrendered the due amount of EU allowances corresponding to the reported emissions to get a compliance status in the Union Registry. And of course, please let me remind you that if you, as a shipping company, do not meet some of these legal deadlines, you will be in a non-compliant status in respect of the obligations and the legal requirements set in the EU ETS directive, the MRV regulation, and or the registry regulation. And this will potentially open you to fall under scope of the enforcement actions of EU member states, including penalties set in national laws. That being said, be aware that the IT system allows for flexibility and will still allow you to finalize reporting even after those dates. But of course, there will be track of late submission. So with today's webinar, as mentioned, we will have two step-by-step live demos on THETIS-MRV and the Union Registry as the two key IT systems which now show and include all the exact deployments. So we can show you really how they will look like if when you report in a few days. And an important clarification is that today's webinar is based on some assumptions because we really wanted to design a hands-on webinar. So concise, clear, that we can then upload also as a recording. So we assume today that you know what needed to be reported. You are familiar with the MRV system for Maritime, and that you are already very familiar with the IT reporting tool THETIS-MRV. So we will not be spending time and details on these contexts. And second important assumption, we assume that you're familiar with the Union Registry and you have activated your shipping company account, your MOA account, to comply with the legal requirements. However, if you still have doubts and during the course of this webinar, there are some concepts that are not entirely familiar or clear to you, please make use of the many available communication resources which are available online. Next slide, please. On the different pages that both we as Directorate General for Climate Action of the Commission and EMSA have updated in the last months. On the MRV system as a general framework for monitoring and reporting of emissions, you have the guidance documents, which now are very detailed. They have been revised in the course of last months. You have the FAQs as a first point of access, but also please consider the many previous webinars that we have made available in terms of recordings and slides. And in particular, on the two issues that we are discussing today, on THETIS-MRV reporting, I flag to your attention the previous webinar, the 6th webinar, which was held in mid-January. And as far as Union Registry is concerned, I flag to your attention the 5th webinar of March 2024, almost a year ago, where we really went into the details of the company attribution, the MOA openings. And with this final slide, I also want to stress that since we're talking today about the use of IT tools, there are dedicated channels for support in the use of IT tools. For THETIS-MRV, there is a dedicated help desk. You can see the address here. Please note that this address has changed around 6 months ago, if I remember correctly. So this is the only entry point for IT assistance in THETIS-MRV. While in the Union Registry, the support is provided at the national level in the different registries. You have the contact points available in this link. And in case of need, of course, these contact points, the national administrator will coordinate with the services of the European Commission for further assistance. A final further note on this important point is a recommendation, a request to help us help you. Please, when you address request to the IT help desk, try to not list several issues and not mix requests on different legislative frameworks like MRV, Fuel EU, ETS, because the primary objective of this IT help desk is really to help on solving issues you might encounter when using the system. So it's not for general questions. For those you have tutorials, you have webinars, and since we are expecting high level of traffic in these weeks, to help us prioritize requests and get support as fast as possible, we invite you to be concise and precise in your tickets request. And with this one, I thank you for your attention and now pass the floor to Lisbon for a dedicated demo on THETIS-MRV reporting function. Lisbon, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon to everybody, and thank you for this presentation that we are going to do this afternoon. I'm going to give the word to my colleague, which will start on the demonstration of some of the functionalities in THETIS-MRV system. Tatiana, please.
Thank you, Ricardo. So I'm already sharing my screen. So for today's demonstration, I will show you two cases for the creation of the company emission reports. So first case will be based on the full emission reports, and the second option with the partial emission reports for the ship already released from the fleet. So let's quickly start. Let's start right away. So the first is the disclaimer that I'm using the test environment for the demonstration, and all the ships, all the companies which I'm going to demonstrate, they have data for the testing purposes. So that no real ships, no real companies, no real reports. So today we are using the company account, which some of you might already be familiar with, because that's the one I'm using all the time for the demonstrations. And let's start right away with the case. For example, the company which we need to create the company emission report is the company Deep Sea Tankers. In our THETIS-MRV account, and many of you can have several companies which are managing several ships. So in order to make it easier for the creation of the report and for the checking of the ships in the fleet of the particular company, let's use the filtering options. So first, on my fleet page, I will filter out only information which is related to the company Deep Sea Tankers. And we can see that we have two ships in the fleet of this company. And we also have two emission reports for the reporting year 2024. That basically is the precondition to start with the report on company level or company emission report, meaning that all the emission reports for each ship, for all the ships in the fleet during that particular reporting period have to be finalized. And finalized in the terms of the system means that they need to reach the last step in the emission report workflow, which is the submission to commission. Before that, of course, they were verified as satisfactory by the verifier. So we check that both of the ships, we have the status, the current status of the emission reports submitted to commission. So we are good with the precondition, meaning that now we can start the creation of the company emission report. And for that, we are going to another section of the portal. We have a dedicated page or the section which is called My Companies. Here we have all your companies, and here is the place where you will create and manage all the company emission reports for all the reporting periods starting with 2024. We can see that in our example, in our demonstration account, we have 4 different companies. 2 of them are with active ships in their fleet, and 2 of them are also, we can say, active companies because they have attributions to member states. Before starting the creation of the company emission report, we need to do one particular step, which is very important. It's the assignment of the verifier on the company level. It's a similar approach that you do with the ship emission reports, that before starting, before submitting, of course, you need to assign the verifier where the report will go for the verification. Same goes for the company emission report. So before even starting creation, we need to assign the verifier who will be verifying the report on the company level. In order to do that, we do it in this page, My Companies. We click Actions on the company name, Actions Company Edit. And we go to the Verifier tab. You can see that so far it's empty, meaning no verifier is assigned. We click Edit and we choose from the list of all verifiers with whom this particular company has established partnerships. In this case, we have only one, which we will select, Verifier Sarah. We save. Now we can go back to My Companies page, and we can see also in this data grid that we have verifier assigned. We can see it clearly also from this first page. So after this action is done, the next step could be already the creation of the company emission report, which is also to be performed here on the same page. In a similar way, we click Actions button on the same company line, and then we select Company Emission Report, Create. The first step after the creation, you need to specify the reporting period. And as I mentioned before, since this is a testing environment, so you can see that we already have 2023 for the testing purposes. In your case, you will have 2024 because it will be like the first year for the company emission report reporting. The company emission report template is created. So now we have the empty company emission report. We can see that it looks very similar to emission report, to the monitoring plan. So all the information is distributed into the different tabs, with the first tab being particulars information, having the creation date, reporting period. So like really high level information, which you need to know. The current status, the deadline for the submission, and after you will proceed with the workflow further, meaning submission to the verifier and then the next step to the administering authority, those dates will be populated also on this page. Then we have also, similar to the emission report, we have all the information about the company who is submitting this company emission report. And if any information needs to be updated afterwards, so for example, you already created the report and then some changes, you noticed that there changes needs to be done and you did them. So then in order to update the changes into the report, you can use the buttons Update from Company Data for all the sections which you see here. But the most important step for the company emission report is actually to identify which emission reports of which ships shall comprise the report on the company level. This is done on the third tab, which is called Ship ERs. And in the beginning, you will have it empty, meaning that now we need to add all the emission reports for all the ships which were under the responsibility of this company during the reporting period. And as advice from our side, like to have it easier for you to use the system, we advise you to start with the automatic data filling, like start with the automatic option when the system will suggest all the emission reports which are already existent in the system in your account under this particular company. So this will make this process much faster and much easier. But of course, you can also use another alternative approach, which is Add Ship ERs, the first button, which would allow you to add different emission reports of all the ships, searching by their IMO number. So this can be done manually one by one. But let's use the first approach with the automatic data filling. Let's click the button and let's see what the system will propose to us as the automated option. In this case, we can see that Okay, so we had the message that in case there were some other already ships emission reports added, that this action will override. So if you click it several times in a row, in our case, we did not override anything because it was an empty one. And now we can see that the system has found 2 emission reports available for 2 ships, which we can now click OK, and that we will see that 2 emission reports from the reporting period 2024, the ones which we already checked in advance that they are eligible to be reported also on the company level, are added automatically into this list. So here, unless you see that not all of the ships are pulled out from the system automatically, basically there is nothing to be done on your part in this particular tab. Then the next tab which you would need to check is the annual emissions. So this is the summary of all the emissions on the company level. So here you see that system already does all the calculations automatically. So like calculates for you all the emissions for all the included emission reports for this reporting period for all the greenhouse gases. Even though for this year you know that you can disregard CH4 and N2O and you will use only CO2, but you see that the system already does a bit of the calculation in advance for the future years to come. Here again, as if everything is done properly on the previous steps, so that you are sure that all your previous emission reports are fine, basically there is nothing to do from the user perspective. However, just to illustrate you the option, because there might be some cases where it could be needed, I'm just illustrating the functionality of the system available so that it can be used by some of the companies where there will be a need to use it. So there is a possibility to modify those values on this step. If you click the button below the table Modify Totals, you will see that all the values which are pre-calculated can be changed by the company. For example, I change something, we can see that it's displayed like that. And here it's important to note that the values which you change, they are changed only in this particular table, meaning that they are changed only in the company emission report, only here in this aggregated table. They are not translated anywhere into the emission reports of the ships included and so on. So it's only at this stage. And also good to note that, for example, if it was done by mistake or whatever misunderstanding, you can always go back to the calculated system values by clicking Reset Values button, and we go back to the correct values proposed by the system. Then the next action, basically, if everything is ready for the submission, is to submit the company emission report to verifier. But before doing that, because with this action we will block the editing options in the system, I will just show you the other tabs so that you have the full overview of everything available here. The next tab is for verifiers use. Basically, it's the tab where the verifier can communicate back to you any misstatements or non-conformities during the verification of this report. If they prefer to use the THETIS-MRV system for that, of course, it can be done also outside. So this is the place for that. And you see that for the company user, there are no actions possible because this is meant for the verifier. Then the next tab with the two tabs with the revision. So emission report revision, this is the tab which you might use to download different revisions of the emission report. So for example, when you will submit the company emission report, you can create a revision of it. Revision is like a version. So here, all the version will appear, submitted version, a version which was verified by your verifier. And then, for example, if you submit it further, then every time the system will ask you whether you would like to create a specific revision for that. And that's where they all will be stored in the system. And the next one, verification report revision, the same idea, but it goes also for the verification report created by the verifier during the verification of your company emission report. So all of the versions, if there are several, all of them will appear on this tab and also will be available for download to the company. And the last tab, in case any exchange of the documents should happen on the company level with the verifier or with the administering authority on the next stage, all of the documents can be uploaded into this tab, and they will go together with the company emission report. Okay, so I guess we can submit. So everything is done. We click submit to verifier, and you see what I just said regarding the revisions. Here, in some cases, the system will ask you as a company to choose whether you want to generate a specific version or revision. And sometimes the system is not going to ask, meaning that the system will automatically do it on your behalf without asking. So, for example, in this case, for the submission, the system is asking, because this is not obligation to, there is no obligatory step to create a specific revision, but if you want to, for that also demonstration purposes, let's do it. And let's see what happens in the emission report revision. We see that now we have generated the revision for the submitted version, and we see clearly the date, time, by whom, which company, and which status submitted to verifier. At this point, when the report is already submitted to verifier, meaning it's not on your side, the action is on the verifier side, meaning for the company, you see other workflow buttons for the time being are deactivated, meaning that until the verifier does their action, either verifies it as satisfactory or returns it back for revision, back to company, on your side, you need to wait. So while the status changes from submitted to verified. Now we can go back to my companies. You can also see clearly that with this additional section, my companies, on my companies page, you will get both lines for respectively for each company, which are managed under your THETIS-MRV account. And the moment when you will start creating company emission reports, every company emission report also will appear here in this list as a separate line. And meaning if any corrections or any actions needs to be done directly with the company emission report, then it shall be done already from this action menu, which is corresponding to this particular line. So now, since we cannot do much with this report when it is submitted, because as I said, the action is on the verifier side, I will quickly cover another example with the partial emission report and with the ship which is already released from the fleet, because that could be a common situation for many companies where they have to include the emission reports which they only had responsibility for the part of the reporting period. And for example, if it was the part of the reporting period which already they were forced to release the ship from their fleet to another company, and now they have to include it, so that might be an interesting case for you to see. So in this case, I again coming back to the to my fleet page, I will remove all the filters and display back the full fleet. And we can see that we have in this list, we can see that I have one partial report for 2024 from 1st of January till 15th of May. And we can see that this particular report was performed under another company, which I also manage in my THETIS-MRV account. This is the company with the name Oceanics. And we can also clearly see that, for example, if I take this IMO number and put it into the filtering options, that we see that this ship, Sea Star, is already in another company's fleet. So under MRV scope, this fleet is already in the company with the name Salix. So here you can see also that in FuelEU, under FuelEU scope, it is still under Oceanics, but under MRV scope, it's already moved companies. So the ship is already in another company's fleet, meaning that the ship was already released from your company account. So you see, I cannot remove it again because it's already in another company. But the company emission, the emission report for the same ship stays with the company who owned the ship for the period. So the emission reports still stay with you. The ship can already be released to the next company, to the next ship owner, but the report still stays in your account. And we also check that the emission report has the proper status, so it was verified as satisfactory and submitted to Commission, so the workflow was clearly finalized, which means that we can create also company emission report for this company. Let's go to my companies. This is a second company, Oceanics. We see that the verifier is not assigned, so we do quickly the same steps. Verifier, edit, we choose the verifier with whom we have established partnership. We go back to my companies. And now we start creation of the company emission report by clicking Actions, Company Emission Report, Create, choosing the reporting period 2024 and getting the empty company emission report already for this company, Oceanics. You can see different details, different attributed member state, same verifier, because, for example, we work with this verifier for all of our companies. And now if we go to ship ERs page and we try to use automatic data filling, we have exactly the same warning saying that if you had something there before, it will be overwritten. We confirm and we can see that the system clearly finds one ship emission report. We click yes, and we can see that it's done correctly. So even though the ship already left our fleet in the system, it does not matter. We still have the emission report, which is eligible for the reporting also on the company level. And it has the proper status, completed workflow for the emission report with the submission to Commission as the last step. And therefore, it is eligible to be included in the company emission report. And you see that the system correctly identified and it is included in the company emission report here. All the other actions are exactly the same. You can see we have the same tabs. I'm not going to repeat everything what I said before. I will just give you another important information which will help you while you are working with the company emission reports, is that when you already created the company emission report but not yet submitted, meaning it's still on your level, on company's level, and then, for example, due to any reason, you need to do any corrections with any of the emission reports included, the system will restrict you that. And the system will restrict you that because the emission report is already included in the company emission report. So in this case, the option how you would overcome this how to say, blocking situation. So first you would need to remove the emission report from the company emission report, and then the editing options will be available. Why is that? It's just simply for the consistency reasons, because if the report is already part of the company mission report, of course, you cannot do any corrections because it's already, how to say, included in the calculations on the company level. So this is just a tip because we already had several help desk requests for those cases. So just to understand, for you to remember that first you need to remove it, actions, remove, confirm, and then you don't even need to delete the company emission report, only to remove the actual emission report from there. And then if you will be back to My Fleet, then you will get back all the editing options, all the revision options for each single emission report as well, available to you. I think that's all from my side, because we wanted to focus on the answering some questions from your side. So I will stop sharing.
Yes, and so we give you the floor back to Brussels. Luca, please.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. And now it's time for the Union Registry live demos. So I ask kindly our registry colleagues if they're ready to share.
Hello, good afternoon. So we'll start sharing. Okay, so now it shall be already available in the screen. And from this part, I will start from the point where we already have a maritime operator holding account created. So, and a note for this, because I'm using a test environment, so you will see a lot of accounts here, and maybe some potentially some errors. So do not. So just to be aware of that. And in this case, I'm using this user that is an authorized representative in several accounts, including aircraft and installation accounts, which can be useful just to show you something, because in this presentation, we'll focus on demonstrating how to report emissions and also to surrender allowances to cover those emissions in order to be compliant. So this compliance status might change throughout the year or throughout time, according to also the deadlines. And here we are able to see some A, B, and C icons in each of these cards or the accounts. And so we will start well below. When we have this C icon, it means that we still need to report the emissions for the preceding year, and we already passed the deadline. So from 1st of April, 2nd of April, we will see this C icon, and the account will be blocked, which means that no transfers can go out from this account. This is what this means. As soon as we report the emissions for this account, it will be open again, and we can proceed with the rest of our operations, including surrendering allowances. That's always possible. So if we do this correctly, then we might have this icon B, meaning that we already reported the emissions, and we just need to surrender the allowances enough to cover, at least enough to cover those emissions. And the goal is to have an account with a compliance status for which the surrendered allowances are equal or greater than the reported emissions value. So this is our goal. Specifically for maritime operator holding accounts, I will use these examples. So it will be an account that is freshly created on the left, and another account that already has some reported emissions, which you can see we already have this big compliance status as the emissions were reported already, and we need to surrender. Also, this account here is foreseen to have the last emissions for this current year, 2025. I only did that in order to show you the compliance status here, because the first deadline that we need to meet is the 31st of March for the reporting of emissions. I will enter this first account. So I think we already did this in previous webinars, so we already navigated a bit through these menus on the left from the account details. And for this particular webinar, we will focus on this compliance page. Here in this compliance page, you will have the possibility to report the emissions, to surrender the allowances, and also to appoint a verifier for your account. As already mentioned before, this will the need to appoint a verifier will depend on the registry, on the national legislation. So you should be informed about this, and if you do need to appoint a verifier to approve the emissions that that are reported, then you'll have this option here on the right. Surrendering of allowances also can be done through other menus like balance and transactions. Here in new transaction, surrender allowances. Also here in overview, we also have this quick actions button, which allows you to surrender allowances and report emissions. But back to compliance page, where we can see some more information. So the idea will be to report emissions for the previous years, the 2024. And as you can see, for this demonstration, we are using a scenario that requires a verifier. So for this case, the system shows a warning saying that no verifier is appointed to this account, so need to be appointed to verify the emissions. Then the emissions might be approved by the verifier. In other cases or other registries might be approved by the national administrator. Still, we are able to report the emissions. We select the year. For now, we only have 2024. And we are able to see here some tooltips for you to know what needs to be entered in each of these fields in the reporting form. So this will refer to point 5 of the company level emissions report. I am trying to show, please let me know if you are not seeing the report. This is a PDF. So we will have here in point 5, this 11,000. Can you see? Yeah. The values that we will need are in this first column, the CO2 column, as already EMSA colleagues referred. We will not use for now CH4 and N2O values for this year and 2025. So only for reporting year of 2026 on, we will use these values. For now, we will use these 0.5, 6, and 7. For this is the first example is for a case where the ICE class derogation is applicable. So I will use both of these values, the one in 0.5 and the one in 0.6. So 4.5, 11,900, and only if we activate this option, ice class ship derogation applicable, we will be able to enter the emissions regarding this this derogation. So it will be a lower value for this, and then this last value, the reduced emissions, will be equivalent or corresponding to the 0.7 of the report, well, this one. So in this case, we are only, this is automatically calculated, and we are only confirming in the company level emissions report that this is the same value, because in Union Registry, we already have this calculation. Is the only calculation that is done here. And as you can see, so this will be calculated on these emissions after ice class derogation value. If we do not have this ice class ship derogation applicable, then the calculation, the reduced emissions calculation, will be done on the full emissions value. We'll take this from another company level emissions report, in which you can see when we have these two values, the value is the same in 0.5 and in 0.6. We only use this full emissions field in the reporting form in Union Registry. And again, the reduced emissions are calculated automatically. We can confirm that is the same value that's in that report. And now we can propose. Okay, this will generate an approval task. In this case, we first have to appoint a verifier in order to that verifier to be able to approve it. So this is, we can open it to see some or sum up of the or wrap up of the information we entered before, and also we can see that this yellow icon identifies these emissions as not yet verified. We cannot change the emissions at this point. So only after validation, the NA will be able to correct the emissions. There's another way. If you, for instance, you noticed an error by this time and the emissions weren't approved yet, you can go to tasks and open the approve emissions task and reject it in order to be able to report again. Those are two ways, let's say, of correcting, but this one will be just not consider the first one and report again. The correction itself can only be done by a national administrator after they are approved. When they are approved, this yellow icon will be a green one saying that it is verified. If you noticed before, the option to surrender allowances was always available even before the emissions were reported. So you can surrender allowances at any time, even before reporting of emissions. You can do this, for instance, at this point, and select here a quantity. This is only possible because for this account we already have 2 units. As you can see in this on the left, this balance, and we can propose. Just to confirm, then we'll be asked, not now, but we will be asked to sign this operation. So we will need to enter the password and use the EU login account to proceed. Okay. Continue to this. Since we don't have a verifier appointed yet, we can use this option, appoint verifier, and select from this list. On this list, it will be only available the verifiers that hold the accreditation to verify MOHA accounts. So it should be previously pre-selected, let's say. And can select one and submit. This will generate a request for that verifier specifically to accept this appointment. Only after the verifier accepts this appointment, we will be able to see it here. So the verifier will be here, the data for that verifier will be here, and it will be able to start approving our emissions for this MOHA account specifically. Now I would like to show the other account that has some more information. I will show you, for instance, the case when the verifier already accepted the appointment. So you will see here the identification of that verifier. And for this case, we already have some emissions here, and as you can see, the green icon that identifies these emissions as verified. For each year, we will have also the specific information that was reported and approved. And up here in this card, we will see the values, the accumulated values. So we only have these 2 years, 100 and 120. So we'll have here the emissions before ICE class derogation. We only have ICE class derogation applicable in 2024. So this is the only value that is shown here. And then for the reduced emissions, which effectively correspond to the number of allowances that must be surrendered in order to be compliant, we will have this application of these phase-in percentages, which we can see here individually for each of the years. So for 2024, we had a 40% for 2024 emissions and 70% for 2025 emissions. In this case, it is applicable on the emissions after ICE class derogation, as I said before. And for the 2025 emission, as we don't have the emissions after ICE class derogation, then the phase-in percentage is applicable on the full emissions here. And by this, well, about the deadlines, I can also or refer again that if by the 1st of April, these emissions are not reported and verified or approved, the status of the account will be, the compliance status of the account will be C, and the account will be blocked. But it will be possible to unblock it. This is automatic process, and it will be possible to unblock it just by reporting emissions. And then later, by October 1st, the same will happen for the surrender of emissions of allowances. Sorry. So if it is not done until then, until 30 of September, the account will be in B compliance status. But at that point, the account will not change its status. It will be still be open. But in order to be compliant, which is the compliance status A, then we will have to surrender the allowances in a value that is equal or greater than the emissions reported before. About another thing about the verifier, just to conclude here, it is possible that throughout months or years or so, we will want to replace the verifier or to work with another verifier. So it is possible to do it through two different options. So we replace directly here in this option and select the new verifier to be appointed, or we first remove the verifier and then appoint a new one, because once removed, this will be empty again, and we will have again the button to appoint the verifier. And I think that's it from my side as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, colleagues. Now we're a bit late, but we received so many questions that I think it's worth trying to go maybe a bit fast through them, but try to cover as many of those as possible, because most of them are really about practical cases, details that it's worth clarifying because they will help you really complying with your obligation in the IT tools. So let's start. I will start from Brussels, and then I will give the floor to registry colleagues and then to EMSA colleagues in Lisbon. We have questions on what is the recommended course of action if a verifier has requested to open an account but does not receive a response from the member state? So this is clearly a question from a verifier who is encountering some delays. We have been informing verifiers in the past weeks, and indeed it's true that some of the IT functionalities have been deployed recently for verifiers. So there might be a bit of a bottlenecks there. And our recommendation is to do not hesitate to contact the relevant national administration in the registry, because they are the one who are to process your application for opening the account. You can find the complete list of contact points of NAs in the web page that I shared before in the slides that will be published after this webinar. If you see that the reply is not as immediate as you would expect, you can also try to contact the administering authority responsible for ETS. The same contact points are available on CLIMA, on the DG Climate webpage. And also, if you're still encountering issues, you can also contact the Fit for 55 help desk, and we'll do our best to try to speed up the process and support you. Then we have a question on what if there are multiple partial emission reports to be submitted for the verification of one vessel, and a company asks basically whether it is possible to create multiple emission reports, and whether the end of year company should be the one covering potential gaps and lack of partial emission reports. There, it's very important to clarify that the company responsible at the end of the reporting year is responsible for the end of year emission report. So just because you are the company which had responsibility on 31st of December does not mean that you need to create or make up partial emission reports for periods during which the ship was not under your direct responsibility. You're not supposed to do that. You're not allowed to do that. What you should do in cases where there is a lack of data, for instance, because the previous company did not submit the partial emission reports or is no longer retraceable, you should consult guidance documents number 3 on verification and accreditation, which explains what to do in such cases in cooperation with your verifier. In particular, section 428, which is about data gaps treatment, because in essence, you will be facing a data gap issue in such circumstances. But please do not create partial emission reports, because for that period, you were not the shipping company under MRV and ETS responsibility. Question, does choosing a verifier means for each company there will be only one verifier? Yes, in the Union Registry, the verifier is linked to the MOA, and therefore for each MOA there will be one verifier as a verification company. Of course, this does not prevent the possibility of having multiple and different verifiers at ship level in THETIS-MRV, which can be the same or different from the verifiers at company level for the SER. We have a question about a company asking how to speed up the procedure to get assigned to an administering authority. And this procedure is basically rather simple, and it's explained in details also in FAQs, in available FAQs. To request the attribution, you need to contact the Maritime help desk of the IT colleagues, the one I show in the slides as well. And it usually does not take long to get the attribution trigger and available in the system. But again, as I mentioned, please help us help you. So help us prioritize the most urgent requests, and attributions are, of course, amongst those, by sending us really targeted questions without mixing multiple questions or questions of different nature. Also, I would expect that this question came from a new company, meaning a company which has started activity under ETS only in 2025. Because if a company which was active in 2024 is asking now for an attribution, is clearly late. And if you are active in 2025, please consider it true you have an obligation to open the MOA, but the surrendering will only take place in 2026. Now, we have a question about how to do company submission if the verification of ship submission is still pending status, given the workload and issues with the reports observed by the company, the verification at ship level by verifiers, and their analysis point. So basically, these questions is about how to speed up the process in the submission of emissions by the company if the verifiers has some backlog and is still working on the verification. And there the question is simple. The question is that the THETIS-MRV system implements the workflow as in the legal framework, which establish a workflow. So you need to take one action after the other. And in the case of the submission of the reports, you have to wait for the reports to be verified as satisfactory. So there is no way to cut corners. You need to wait for your report to be marked as verified as satisfactory and for the verifiers to have done his job. Now we have a question on whether there is a way, there is a plan to enable the verifier at company level to access some other information in THETIS-MRV, like verification reports, emission reports that are currently not available. And the answer is that for the time being, there is no immediate action, because it's a responsibility of the company to submit relevant documents required for the company level emission report verifiers work. So this could be sorted out bilaterally. You can contact the shipping company and ask them to forward you the documents, which are saved and available in its own THETIS-MRV interface. Then we have a question on what happens if the data is not verified, but the allowances are surrendered by 30th of September. And this is important because, first of all, if you don't verify the data by the due deadlines, you will need, your status will be, the status of your account will be turned to blocked, because it's a requirement to have it marked as verified by 1st of April. And secondly, surrendering alone will be not enough, because the surrender needs to be matched against the amount of verified emissions. So on 1st of October, you will have a non-compliant status if you haven't finalized the verification of emissions in the Union Registry. And then a last question for me, and then I will pass the floor to registry colleagues, because there are many interesting questions on registry IT. Do I need a contract with the verifier for the registry? Well, indeed, we would expect the verifier in the registry to be paid and expected to be paid. So you will need some sort of contractual arrangements, because the verifier in the registry is a verification company, which needs to be accredited under MRV ETS Maritime. Most likely, we would expect it to be the same of acting in THETIS-MRV. So for sure, your THETIS-MRV verifier will offer this kind of services, should offer you this kind of services, so you can check with that company. But indeed, we would expect a contractual agreement. And now I pass the floor to our registry colleagues for a few minutes.
Hello again. So about the questions on the chat, I can start with this one. The question was where we can access the Union Registry system. There is a new system rolled out this week. However, some administering authorities are still sending links through to the old system. Please, can you clarify how the two systems will transfer data and information? So the current situation is that the Union Registry has two user interfaces. We have an old or a legacy user interface and new user interface. Regardless which the interface the user uses, the data will be the same. But in the future, we only use the new interface since the old one will be switched off. For Maritime specifically, I would say that you should, as much as you can, use the new interface. And the other question would be to clarify how verifier accounts can link AR to the main account set up by the account lead. Is this something the verifier has to manually do or something that needs to be done or at least initiated by the member state? So as you were able to see in demo, the disappointment of the verifier to the Maritime account can be initiated by the account representative. That was the role I was playing the demo, or by the national administrator, also by the national administrator. So then the verifier will have to accept this disappointment for the linking to be effective between the verifier account and the Maritime account. We do have some more questions that were gathered before. So one of them was, what happens if I do not surrender by 30th September? Can I still surrender late? This was also tackled before, but so we will be assigned this non-compliant status marked as B, and which will mean that the emissions were reported, but the allowances were not surrendered at all or in sufficient amount to cover the emissions reported. So, but the status of the account itself will not be blocked. This is a bit different from the first deadline for the emissions report in 31st of March. For those, yeah, the account will be blocked. As also mentioned before, this blocking only has to do, or mainly has to do with not being able to transfer any allowances from that MOHA account. So another question would be, can I surrender before reporting in THETIS-MRV or the registry? And also, yes, you can surrender at any time since you have the allowances available. And once the Maritime operator account is active. And also what Luca has already said, surrendering alone does not mean compliance. So that you will have to first report the emissions, and only and then by before 1st of October you will have to surrender these allowances in order to be compliant and status A. Another question, what if I enter emissions in Union Registry, but then I need to amend those, for instance, because I had to revise my company level emissions report? What should I do in the registry? Are there deadlines? So for this, as I also mentioned briefly, only national administrators can do the correction. This will be possible anytime, provided that the account is open or blocked or suspended. So it is depending on the status of the account, and the emissions have been verified. This I've already referred to. While there is an approval pending from a verifier or for NA, we cannot correct the emissions. The fourth question is the account blocking. Is the account blocking, if I missed the reporting deadline of 31st of March, an automated or manual process instigated by a member state? So both of blocking and unblocking of MOHA take place automatically. So it's not necessary to file a request to unblock or trigger a manual intervention by the national administrator. Fifth question, who shall initiate the confirmation of the link between the company and the verifier in the MOHA? So the shipping company, as we have already mentioned, the shipping company has to trigger through the option appoint verifier, as shown in demo, and then the verifier will have to confirm the linkage. But well, yes, only after the company, the shipping company initiated the process through the MOHA account. Another possibility about the verifiers, what happens if I decide to change verifier over time? It is possible that you do that removing the verifier and appointing a new one, or replacing the verifier through those options that I shown, which basically does this in two steps, removing the old and appointing the new in one, only one step. And I think that's it from our side as well.
Thank you, Marta. Before giving the floor to Lisbon for a final quick round of Q&As, just to answer a recurrent question that we saw as a follow-up on the block status, to clarify that the block status does not prevent you from finalizing your reporting requirements, because by reporting, entering the values and that them mark as verifiers, you will get the compliance, that you will still be able to finalize the steps. The only key things that the block status will prevent you from doing is to transfer the allowances that you might have in your account. And of course, it will be clearly stated that your account is blocked and non-compliant after the deadline. So these are the two main consequences. Lisbon, please feel free to take a few minutes for some additional Q&As, and then we can wrap up.
So thank you, Luca. Yes, some of the questions have already been answered, but there are still some others. So there's one question: why would the company edit the values in the company emission report? Shouldn't the values be identical with the verified ship emission reports? Yes, in principle, the company doesn't need to change any values in the company emission report, as the ship's emission reports were already verified by the verifier. The system gives this flexibility, so this is just to provide some flexibility in the system to cover unforeseen situations where the company needs to change its value, which is very not, in most cases will not be needed on the majority of ones. The final values in any case, the company emission report will be verified by the verifier, so basically the system is not replacing the verifier on his tasks and responsibilities. We also have another question regarding XML files for company emission reports from THETIS. We don't have XML files for company emission reports. Probably this is XML files related to emission reports. And the question is about the roundings. There are some CO2 equivalent per vessel roundings after the derogations, and the total emissions from company emission reports in CO2 equivalents are rounded because of CH4 and N2O. There are some differences in these numbers, and they are not easiest to track. Do you plan to make any amendments to that, or should verifiers just accept such roundings? So currently, the system is doing these roundings calculations, But please note that the CH4 and N2O are not relevant at this moment, so only CO2. And this is quite straightforward data that is on the company emission report. However, we are aware of this situation and we will address this in a future THETIS-MRV release. There is also another question. Is there any plan to enable company emission report verifiers to have an access to emission reports and respective verification reports that are included into CER, but were not verified by that verifier? We will consider it for the future improvements of the system. However, currently the verifier and companies can use the docs tab available in the system, and in case any additional documents like emission reports shall be shared together with company emission report via the system. But as was said also before, you can also contact the company and ask for this information as necessary. We also have a past issue which is related to a system notification informing that monetary plans will be outdated in a certain time and needs to be reassessed, but the company cannot take any action. What should I do? So this is a situation that happens, in fact, 12 months after the monitoring plan submission. It needs to be revalidated. At this stage, some monitoring plans are still in the approval process, so companies cannot do any change. But as soon as these monitoring plans are approved, they will continue on the workflow, and the companies will be able to continue on the revalidation process. So from our side, I don't know if my colleagues want to add something else, but I give the floor back to you, Luca. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ricardo. And since we're a bit late on time, I think we can wrap up with a few greetings from my colleague, Timothée Noël, our team leader. Please, Tim.
Thank you, Luca. First, I would like to thank the colleagues in Brussels and in Lisbon for the great work they did in preparing this webinar. And I would like to thank also all the participants for their active participation in today's webinar. And we hope that the live demo that we provided today were helpful to you to better understand how to comply with the forthcoming legal deadlines. From our side, together with EMSA, we continue being committed to help you in implementing effectively the legislation, and we will, of course, consider whether it will be appropriate in the coming months to organize a new webinar. And with this, I would like to thank you again for your participation, and I would like to close that webinar.